Hello, my name is David Holt. I'm the Research and Emerging Technologies Law Librarian here at the Heaphy Law Library. This is the screencast on Introduction to Federal State Primary Materials, Precedent, and Authority. Let's start the screencast with a refresher from last week. You will remember our major sources of primary law for both California and the federal government here. Session laws. Remember, session laws are a compilation of laws enacted during a particular legislative session. They are generally collated in the order in which they were enacted. The session law reporter for California is simply called California Session Laws. For federal statutes, we have two sources for federal session laws. The first is the official session law reporter, which is called United States Statutes at Large, and they're also published in a parallel source called US CAN. From there, session laws are organized by subject area into the code. Remember that a code is a subject compilation of statutes currently in effect. For California, we have two code sets. One is published by West and the other by Deerings. For the federal government, remember we do have an official code set for the federal government that is published by the government itself, and that is simply called United States Code. The Blue Book abbreviation for that is simply USC. For the highest court, the case reporter in California is California Reports, which has a Blue Book citation of Cal 2D, and etc. There's three reporters, remember, for the United States Supreme Court. Only one of those of the three, however, is official, and that's called United States Reports, abbreviated US. For the appellate courts in California, it's California Appellate Reporters, so CalApp, CalApp 2D, and etc. And for the federal appellate courts, it's the Federal Reporter. Remember, there is not a trial court reporter for California, and that's true for the other states as well. There is, however, a reporter for the federal trial courts, and that is called the Federal Supplement, or FSUP. For the federal regulatory code, those regulations are contained and codified in the Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR, and in California, it's Barclay's California Code of Regulations. So let's go over the various sections of a code section, and that you will see either in a California code set or in the federal codes. The first section that I want to go over is the title field. The title field contains the section number, and also its short title. And so we're looking at 42 USC 1983. 1983 is the section number, and the short title is Civil Action for Deprivation of Rights. The important point to remember here is to not confuse the short title with its popular name. Those two are distinct from each other. The short title is the label that's given to the code section itself. The popular name is the name for the statute, which may have created this code section in addition to others. Some examples of popular names that you will be familiar with will include, for federal statutes, the Patriot Act, the Affordable Health Care Act, the Copyright Act of 1976, and so on and so forth. A popular name is given to the statute, not to the code section. The effective date is the date the code section was last modified by legislative action, and we're going to go into our legislative history notes in some detail later on. Following the title field is the statutory text itself, and so this is the text which will be identical to the text that is found in the session law. And then that is followed by our legislative history notes. The legislative history notes give the statute that originally created the code section. So this was originally created in 1949 by Chapter 338. You'll notice within the federal code sections that you'll see two different types of session law references. The first will be to chaptered laws if it precedes the 1950s. There was a change in how this was done in the 1950s. Prior to the 1950s, federal session laws would be referenced in much the same way that state session laws are still referenced, and that's by chapter number. After that change, they are referred to by their entry in U.S. statutes at large and their public law number. And so this is a perfect example of how that change took place. So in 1949, 42 USC 1983 was originally created, and it was created by Chapter 338 of that legislative session. It was modified later in 1968 by Public Law 98479, which is also found in the 82nd volume on the 551st page of U.S. Statutes at Large. Okay, an anatomy of a case. We'll begin with our citation and caption field. The citation field obviously is going to give you the citation to the reporter that you're currently looking at the case in, but also it may give you parallel citations to other case reporters where the opinion has also been published. This area is also important in that it gives you the docket number for the case. The docket number may be useful for you if you need to acquire other documents associated with the case, and so if you need to find any of the motions, the orders, the transcripts from the case, you would need to use the docket number to locate and acquire those materials. For the federal case courts, there is an electronic filing system called PACER. That you would use this docket number to locate materials via. For the state courts, it's kind of a mishmash of different services that you would use to acquire court documents. Frequently, for state court materials, you will need to contact the clerk's office at the court itself to acquire documents associated with the case. Okay, following the caption field and the citation, if this is in a West case reporter, you will find key numbers and headnotes that will follow prior to the published opinion. Key numbers and headnotes are a system that were created by Westlaw back in the 1880s. A case is broken down into its elements, and then each element is assigned an appropriate key number, and then will be a very concise summary of that element, which is the headnote. So a headnote always is associated with its respective key number. A key number is useful to locate other cases that have also been assigned the same topic area. If you need to locate cases within the same jurisdiction for authority, or if you're looking for persuasive authority from other jurisdictions as to how other jurisdictions have handled a particular issue, you would be using key numbers to locate those cases. Headnotes are also great in that you can search within the headnote using a segment search on Westlaw. And this is often more effective than doing a search within the opinion itself. And the way that you would do that, if you went into Westlaw here, like if we wanted to do an advanced search within the headnote field for equitable adoption, we get a nice list of 6 cases that include the phrase equitable adoption within one of the headnotes. A very manageable list here. Doing a segment search within the headnotes, again, it's a very effective search tool in Westlaw. Okay, the base case citation. I'm not going to go over this in much detail, as you went over this quite a bit during your first year of law, but you have your party names, your citations, and remember the Blue Book rule requires a specific order. If there is an official reporter, generally that's going to be the reporter that will be listed first. You do have the option of listing other case reporters if there's parallel citations for that same opinion. Okay, some basic elements in Westlaw next. We went over this a little bit, but let's go over it again. We have your citation field, and so it's going to give you your case citation where it appears in the case reporter, the court from which it originated, your caption field, which will include your party names, the docket number, if you need to locate other documents associated with this case, the synopsis and the holdings. Again, this has been written by Westlaw. The judge that authored the opinion, and then your headnotes. all of these segments you can search separately within both Westlaw or Lexis. So if you wanted to search within the citation field, that would be title as the name of the segment in Westlaw, synopsis and holdings, judge. I think synopsis is abbreviated SI, judge is JU, and so forth. Head note I just demonstrated is HE for the abbreviation. Let's show some examples there. So if we wanted to change our jurisdiction to the United States Supreme Court, and we wanted to locate only those opinions that have been written by Justice Souter, I can do a segment search to quickly locate those cases. Again, parallel citations, you're frequently going to see a case that will have been published in more than one case reporter. Here is Chevron v. NRDC, a very pivotal administrative law case that was reported in U.S. reports. Also in the two case reporters from Westlaw and Lexis, respectively, for the U.S. Supreme Court. Also the the Lexis automated citation, and there's also three other parallel citations here: U.S. Law Weekly, which is a BNA product, in a BNA set on environmental law, and in a specialized case reporter on environmental law reports. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 case reporters which have published the same opinion. There's a whole array of specialized case reporters which you may not have encountered so far in law school. They are, however, important. You are already familiar with the three case reporters for the U.S. Supreme Court. So United States Reports is the official case reporter. Supreme Court Reporter is the unofficial, published by Westlaw, and United States Supreme Court Reports Lawyers Edition is the Lexis product. For the Court of Appeals, they are all published by Westlaw, but these are the official. So there's West Federal Reporter, and then the Federal Supplement for the district courts. And included in that is Federal Rules Decisions, or FRD. FRD is a case reporter for district level cases that are not published in the Federal Supplement, at which an issue of procedure was at play in the case. Some of the specialized reporters will include the Bankruptcy Reporter from West, the Veterans Appeals Reporter, Military Justice, the Federal Claims Reporter, and then the International Trade Reports and Tax Court Reports. If you're doing legal history research and you're looking at cases that were heard before the courts in the 18th or 19th century, you will see that those have been published in what are called nominative case reporters. Nominative case reporters existed up until U.S. reports started publication. You will also see nominative case reporters for some of the states, particularly those on the East Coast, Massachusetts, the New England states particularly. Nominative reporters are the only thing that you really need to remember here. Why this is important is that the Blue Book rule still requires you to include the name of the nominative reporter, even though it's been republished in U.S. reports. And so we have Marbury v. Madison here, which was heard by the court in 1803. It has been subsumed by U.S. reports, and so if you were to look in the 5th volume of U.S. reports, you would see this decision appear on page 137. But it also was published originally in a nominative reporter called Cranch. Why Blue Book still requires you to include a reference to the nominative reporter at this point doesn't make much sense, but this is still the Blue Book rule, and so this is something that you need to memorize. Again, you're not going to encounter this very frequently, but if you do have to cite to some very old cases here that are from the 1700s or from the 1800s up till about 1880 or so, which is when the national case reporting system from West originated, you are going to have to refer to the nominative reporter for that case. Some other atypical case reporters that you will infrequently see, I already mentioned federal rules decisions. There's also a set called the Federal Appendix, which are unpublished appellate decisions. There's the Military Justice Reporter, federal claims, and international trade reports. Let's go a little bit into how a case is selected for publication. There is actually a rule in both California and for the Ninth Federal Circuit as to how a case is selected for publication. Remember that this process is never arbitrary. There's always a reason why a case is selected for publication. The rule in California is Rule 8.1105 in the state rules of court. And cases are always published for the following reasons. It either modifies a rule of law, it's of great public interest, it offers a new interpretation, or it contributes to the development of the law. It's much the same for the federal courts. In Circuit Rule 36-2, the federal courts use many of the same criteria that the state does to select cases for publication. Important point to remember here is that even within the circuit courts, only about 15 to 40% of cases are selected for publication, and a much smaller number of our federal trial court decisions are selected for publication in the federal supplement. It's probably about 5%, if that, of our federal trial court cases will be selected for publication in FSUP. Types of opinions that you'll see published: there's majority opinions, which is an opinion that's agreed to by more than half of the court. There's obviously a dissenting, maybe a dissenting opinion if it's not unanimous. A plurality opinion is an opinion lacking enough votes to constitute a majority but received more votes than any other opinion. Slip opinion isn't actually a type of opinion, it's a type of publication, and these are the advance sheets before an opinion has been released for publication. So this is the first appearance of a court opinion, will be the slip opinion. You may have seen on television when a opinion is released by the United States Supreme Court and they have runners that will run into the court, grab the opinion, and then run down to the steps to give the opinion to news media who quickly read it and try to get it onto the air. The document that those runners are getting in the court and bringing back to the news media is the slip opinion. A concurring opinion is a vote cast by a judge in favor of the judgment reached, but often on grounds differing from those expressed in the majority. Memorandum opinion is a unanimous opinion. Per curiam is an opinion authored by the entire court, and so they're not named. It's by the court itself. And then a depublished opinion. You're not going to see this very frequently, but this is important in California. An intermediate court's opinion may be struck from the official reports by a higher court, and so you may have an opinion in California that has been ordered to be depublished. Doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's very important that you notice. Some helpful tricks here to help you distinguish the various types of case reporters. When the word supplement appears in the title, that's generally a case reporter of trial level opinions. Reporter or reports is generally refers to a case reporter. Digest refers to a case digest, an index of cases organized by subject. And you're not going to see this very frequently in the United States, but outside the US, in Canada and the UK, the term abridgment is frequently used in reference to case digest. Okay, an introduction to authority and precedent in California state courts. The big court decision in California, which has established the rule of authority and precedence, is the auto equity sales decision, which came out of the court in 1962. It holds that all tribunals exercising inferior jurisdiction are required to follow decisions of courts exercising superior jurisdiction. So the decisions of the California Supreme Court are binding upon and must be followed by all the state courts of California. So all California Supreme Court decisions are binding on all courts in the state. The decisions of every division of the Court of Appeals are binding upon all the justice and municipal courts and upon all the superior courts, the trial courts of this state. So this means that every decision, even from a district court of appeals that is not in the same district of the trial court, is binding upon that trial court. What happens then if you have conflicting authority? If you have two district courts that have reached differing conclusions on the same area of law, the trial court at that point is obligated to exercise equitable principles to determine what's in the best interest of justice and choose between the differing opinions. Authority and precedent in federal courts is much more straightforward. We know this already. On federal questions, the Supreme Court's mandatory on all lower courts, and the circuit courts are mandatory on all lower courts within that jurisdiction, within that circuit, and it's persuasive for the other circuits. And then district courts are mandatory on lower specialized courts within that same district. On issues of state law, remember the final arbiter of state law questions is always the state Supreme Court. So these decisions that come out of a federal court when they're hearing cases in diversity jurisdiction are always persuasive, and the state Supreme Court rules on issues of its own law and constitution. Okay, a little introduction on Case Digest. What is a case digest? You should know this already, but a case digest is simply a case finding tool. If you think of it as a very large index to cases that are organized by subject, and the West National Reporter System is far and away the most popular case digest system. These head notes and key numbers, there were 450 original topics. These have now been broken down into over 100,000 key numbers, and then each key number is assigned to a case will have a corollary head note written for it. Key numbers are far more useful, have been far more useful in the past than they are today. I see practicing attorneys using Case Digest less and less with the advent and progress of electronic legal research. We can do a full text search within the opinion. We can search within the headnote field itself. And we have a plethora of secondary materials that have aggregated relevant cases for us. So why would I use a case digest at all? It's probably less effective than doing a headnote search because the key numbers do tend to be broad. Even though there's 100,000 of them, you're talking about the entirety of American law. And so those key numbers still tend to be broad. They are, however, helpful in finding persuasive authority in other jurisdictions. And the reason why I would strongly stress this value here is because not all jurisdictions use the same terms when talking about the same topic. And so you may have authority in another jurisdiction that is talking about the same subject, but are using different terms to describe it. If you were to use a keyword search, a natural language search, or even an advanced search, you may not find that persuasive authority. However, you would by using the key number. The Case Digest in the West National Reporter System follow the same demarcations as the regional case reporters. These case reporters were created in the 1880s. And you'll see that the geographic divisions are a little strange. And the reason why is because the country was quite a bit different in the 1880s than it is now. You'll notice that the Pacific Reporter covers almost half of the state, and it even includes states that we don't consider to be part of the Pacific region, such as Oklahoma. And the reason why is because you have to envision what the country looked like in 1880. There were far fewer people living on the West Coast in 1880, and so West, when they created this system, created one geographic division for the western half of the country. And so the Pacific Reporter is the largest. Then we have the Northwestern, Southwestern, Northeastern, Southern, Southeastern, and Atlantic. These regional digests will include cases from the state courts. You'll frequently see parallel citations to regional case reporters, and they still have a lot of value today. You'll see firms will purchase access to a regional case reporter rather than purchasing the official reporters from a number of states. And the reason why is simply because of cost. If you have a law firm that has offices in Sacramento, Portland, and Seattle, for example, you could purchase a subscription to the Pacific Reporter and you'd have coverage for all three states rather than having to purchase the official case reporter from all three jurisdictions. Other than the regional digest, there are state digests. We have California Digest for California. There's also Federal Court Digest, such as the Federal Practice Digest, and there are antiquated digests, including the Decennial Digest, which covers your 18th and 19th century court cases.